Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, September 29th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily, number 190. Awesome. You know, anytime we hit a number like 190, it feels nice and round. It feels like there should be meaning there. But really, today is probably going to be one of the more normal dailies that we're going to have in a while. See normal, I'm still drooling. I'm salivating at the idea of discussing strategy. But in this daily, we're just going to go ahead and look at a very normal Terran build. Well, actually not very normal, but it's going to be an analysis of a game that was played between Drewbie and Darkforce. Now, Darkforce is also on alternate attacks, such as, you know, the team that has Sock on it. But it's ATM, so I always want to say, attention, Darkforce. So I'll probably do that a couple times here. But the topic of today's daily is going to be on this mysterious idea of transitioning that I refer to all the time. And you always hear me use the following example, and I'm going to use it again, so just deal with it. If I want to get either Templar or Carrier, either Templar or Colossus, because let's say he has a bunch of Marines, I want to kill those with Storm or with the Colossus, I can get the Colossus a lot easier if I opened 2-gate Robo. Or if I open Dark Templar Rush, it's a lot easier for me to get the Templar, because I already have some of that tech completed. So, in general, it's about making things smooth and easy to get, good, easy transitions. But with Terran, it can be kind of tricky knowing what transitions are the best ones to do because of those little add-ons, reactors and tech labs. The fact that you can just be swapping building around like Legos means that there is a huge variety of strategies that are opened up to you. So we're going to look at a very, very cool usage of that by Drewbie in this game. Also, I paid my rent today. My rent, yeah, because I decorated it green, so that's awesome. Also, I wanted to state, if any of you are going to be at the New York Comic Con, I'm going to be there casting the Intel Extreme Masters that I'm very excited about. I'm also going to be going to DreamHack at the end of November to do casting there. So any Swedish folk, come say hello. I'm also going to be at BlizzCon just as a regular old nerd. Bought my ticket. Rubbing my tummy. So, in other exciting news, I want to introduce all of you to Sock Puppet Day 9. Alright, before we begin the game, Sock Puppet Day 9. Here's the key. Look at the lips. We first have to pull the lips down like this. But you see, this isn't the Sock Puppet yet. I have to make noises and look around angrily. And then I go, "Ah! Ah!" Sock Puppet Day 9. Very awesome. It also allows me to do a very good Jabba the Hutt impersonation. You know, the Jabba the Hutt Han Solo. Ah! So now that GIF has been already uploaded to the internet, and that is a permanent fixture of my personality, we're going to go ahead and jump into the game and actually learn cool stuff about transitioning in Starcraft 2. So at the north of the map, we have Drewbie! I'm going to get my carpal pillow tunnel to rest my poor, sad little arms upon so they do not hurt too much. There's the good game to have fun, the GL by Drewbie. And they are beginning as usual. Now, I'm not going to speed through the start of this game. Wanted to talk once again about Overlord scout patterns. This is the default scout pattern, right? Just to send it right away. But I want you to note something. If you send this Overlord to the bottom position, right down here, this can really help you spot something like proxy gates or something like that. Because note that this position by ground is the closest to your own natural. So just consider interesting scouting patterns with your overlords. That can almost always be something a little bit useful to consider. Sure, you ended up spotting him really fast with your first overlord, but if you scouted south, you could spot with the first at the bottom, and the second one would hit the top at about the same time, so it's kind of like a medium-ish spot reveal. If I was doing something like a 10 pool, I would probably end up scouting the bottom first with my first overlord, and then sending my second overlord up here, because then I would either hit the top or the bottom if I scouted it, and the far left if I saw nothing at the top or bottom. Just interesting scout patterns to consider. Now, we do have a supply depot going down. A lot of people like building their first supply depot next to their base. This is kind of just haphazardly built right here. I would prefer doing something a little bit subtle, like building a depot here, so we can build a depot here. And then if suddenly Zerglings get into our base at some undetermined time in the future, we can just throw up that wall, right? We can just easily unburrow those two. Or if we started building depots here, we could have them unburrowed to block Hellion drops. Always be making use of that little stuff that we call building placement. I'm going to continue talking about building placement. We have this wall off from Drewbie. This is an increasingly popular style to, instead of use supply depots too much in the wall off, to use a barracks and a factory. But I think this is very clever by Drewbie. He artificially puts a supply depot here. You can block this with just those two buildings. I mean, you kind of need one SCV or unit in the middle, but you can effectively block it off. But by planting this here, we can actually control the wall off. A lot of people neglect the fact that because supply depots can burrow and unburrow, you always have that blocked-in defense. Sure, Baneling busts are problematic, but still, just a little trade-off there. Now that we've gotten past the early stages of the game where I can blabber on all I want about building placement and how neato burrito it is, in this circumstance, we see Drewbie doing a very, very typical build, right? He's gotten his barracks out, and he's gotten a fast gas after that. He's going for a factory and the reactor, a double Hellion opening, very, very common opening. Meanwhile, Darkforce appears to have gone Hatchet Expo and then double Queen, and he's getting the ultra-fast Zergling speed, not pulling guys out of gas, a little bit of an interesting choice there. But still, pretty usual build from Darkforce. Maybe might feel a little bit risky, a little bit bold to have taken the expansion, but obviously very, very typical jazz. Now, Drewbie, I want to be the focus of the discussion here. Drewbie's going to do some very cool, very fancy, suave, baller-esque stuff. And I want to highlight now the difference between a opening and then a build order, right? This opening double Hellion, you've seen this all the time. Shove my pillow out of the frame. I want the attention. You've seen this all the time. QXC, well known for doing it in almost every one of his TVZs for quite some time and still crushing everyone. They would know it was coming, but he made it solid. A lot of early players, Cathan Luck, used it in a lot of all-in cheese builds. Who are some other players who use it? I mean, almost every Terran used the double Hellion build. It's probably the most seen strategy in Terran vs. Zerg, or should I say the most seen opening in Terran vs. Zerg, in addition to that big, big Reaper play. So everyone knows this opening, or has at least experienced it. But again, just to state the obvious, it's good because at the outset, the only thing that Zergs really have to defend against Hellions are Zerglings, Roaches, Queens, and Spine Crawlers. Zerglings, Hellions do a lot of damage against Zerglings. They're quite good against them, so we're not too worried about that. Now, Roaches have shorter range. We can actually micro against them quite well. Same with Queens. Queens have shorter range than Hellions. You can micro against them quite well. Spine Crawlers is really the only thing that's going to really shut you down. Notice how I strategically made this finger the Spine Crawler as opposed to this finger. The Spine Crawlers, they'll shut your Hellions down, but it also guarantees nothing scary is coming out of Zerg's front. Because he can either make units to defend your Hellions, or he can make Spine Crawlers and drones to defend those Hellions. He cannot do both. So if he makes the Spine Crawlers, you're already feeling kind of safe. But what do you do after double Hellion? Most people are going to do this timing that really QXC is the first player who popularized it, which is to sneak in this command center right before you begin making those Hellions. It's quite a fast command center. But what do we do next? A lot of players just kind of start making Hellions and they just keep making Hellions. And at this stage in the game, when I saw this, oh, look, he's landing a barracks with a tech lab. Yes, he is going to go for a Hellion Marauder composition. Hellions will deal with the Ling numbers if Roaches so happen to be the defense that Darkforce uses. Looks like Spine Crawlers are coming out, but if Roaches were coming out, he would have plenty of Marauders coming out. Very, very nice early defense, and a second gas going down. That seemed a little early to me upon first glance. Now, he's going to be doing at the front gate what everyone does. The stop and shoot micro. He's going to come back here to the watchtower. This is all good and well. But then I saw something very interesting for me. Drewbie swapped the barracks and the factory. Now, when I saw this is the first thing that immediately popped into mind. How many of you saw the Intel Extreme Masters Global Challenge games of like Morrow against Idra? I mean, I just posed that question, and now I'm going to look over at the chat, and it's going to be like, yes, 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 no, yes, no. But especially in the series of DeMuslim against Idra. DeMuslim had this common mid-game style where we see a lot of tanks and a lot of Marines and some medevacs. And the idea is the tanks kill the Banelings, and then the Marines and the tanks can pretty much deal with everything else reasonably well. Tank Marine. Now, I want you to notice, that's your general build, that's your general theme. I want to go tank Marines. I want to go tank Marines. And, as we can see here, this opening of Hellions, this opening transitions well into it. We just swap the two. We begin making Marines. We begin getting the tanks. We begin getting the siege mode. I think that's going to work very, very well. And I saw this and went, oh, now I clearly know what Drewbie's doing. But alas, no, he's doing something a little bit stranger. We see an armory going down. We see a starport going down. Some Marines are being made. And here the Hellions still doing just a good job of containing, of spotting. One spine crawler is going to shut down the harass. Some Zerglings here, they do have speed, so they can pinch off those Hellions that are trying to swoop around. Basically shut down. Very, very good play by Zerg. But still, Drewbie is doing good with these Hellions. He's doing the contain. And here now starts the Thor, and some more Marines could be coming en route. Starport is also going down as well. And we have an expansion up, getting the double gas very, very, very quickly. And we're going to actually see a bunker plop down eventually, I believe. Looks like the Thor is en route. Now, I just want to point out how nicely this build transitions. Now, first of all, let's come back to that Marine tank that I was so certain was actually what Drewbie was going to do. I was so certain of that. Now, if you are going Marine tank, what happens when your opponent goes Mutalisks? Well, I have Hellions at his front, I have Marines and tanks. I guess I need to get my Marines in a good position, but I don't know if I'll have Stim yet. I mean, I still only have a Reactor Barracks. I can't even get Stim. And I'm going to have to waste a bunch of money on turrets. So Drewbie actually does something very clever. Sure, Marine tank, you can transition to that general theme, but you're going to get messed with a little bit much. So what we see is a very fast Thor, basically anticipating Mutalisks, and this is the sign of a very, 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 very smart build. I want to point this out to you. The Thors are going to cold shut down Mutalisks, right? They're going to absolutely deal with Mutalisks so easily. It's going to be so easy, right? However, against roaches, against other things like that, that's where we'd possibly have some concern. With this build, we're not worried about Mutalisks at all. If we were going Marine tank, we would be worried about it. But I want you to note that if a bunch of roaches start coming out, the Hellions can kind of pick off the roaches from afar, do a little bit of damage. Marines in a bunker are going to be decent against the roaches defensively, and the Thor is going to be decent against the roaches defensively. In other words, the one thing we're really worried about, we have a whole bunch of little safeguards against that. Drewbie didn't just straight go Thor after the Hellion attack, because what would have happened? Roaches would have walked in and killed him. Would have been okay against Mutalisks, but roaches would have been a big problem. But because he's getting a good amount of units that are okay against roaches, he is effectively only really kind of have to thinking about that for the later stages of the game. Against Mutalisks, he's not going to be nearly as worried. And that's what a good strategy does. It puts a big X through a lot of those key strategies that people do. And then you pretty much say, well, now how do I worry about something like roaches? In this case, Drewbie is going to be pretty much fine against roaches. Maybe he'll have to play a little defensively for a little bit, but in essence, he is doing just fine against that. I mean, for instance, early pool openings shut down fast expands. You shut those down completely, and as a result, you have a simpler problem to face. How do I beat a one-basing player, since I've already shut down all the really fast expos? I'm not necessarily saying that it will be easy, but it's simpler. It's fewer possibilities to consider. So we do see that this Viking is coming out. This is another good aspect of a build. At this point in time, Drewbie's basically in defense mode, alright? He's going to be going 2-factory Thor. He's spreading the Thors out. He's getting the upgrades for his Thor. He's making some Marines, planting them in a bunker. He is in a position to put 0 pressure on his opponents. So what does he do? He gets 1 Viking just to put gentle pressure. He could land here and pick off Zerglings. He could fly around and pick off overlords. That's exactly what he wants to do. Yeah, he could scout into the main. He could easily scout into the main, but he's not going to. He's going to kill off these overlords. Unfortunately, Darkforce does have those Mutalisks out. Mutalisks very, very good against Vikings. And the Thor there to shut it down hard. Really hard. And Drewbie's doing something a little more unusual. We see 2 starports down here right now. Haven't done anything with them yet. Pretty much just Thors at this phase in the game. And here's going to come some tech labs. And what we're actually going to end up seeing is that Banshees are going to be popping out of this. So it's like a Thor Marine Banshee build, and we can always stop and make some Hellions and get that, this one, the Infernal Pre-Igniter. I always, for some reason, hit T for this upgrade, even though, like, no factory units really are using that one. Man, it's all like the E and the S and the fancy stuff. But Infernal Pre-Igniter, that one right there, we can just suddenly stop Thor production, begin getting some Banshees, and just make one round of Hellions, and then add on our Pre-Igniter. And notice how well this build is working out, right? I'm gonna just briefly stop. Let's ignore the merit of it. Let's ignore whether it's good or bad. We can clearly see that the money's being spent. We're pretty much constantly producing out of all the structures we can produce out of, with the exception of this one barracks, which we probably could if we smoothed our build out a little more. That is, if we didn't forget SCVs, if we didn't forget depots, that sort of thing. But man, look at that. Yeah, getting a whole lot of Banshees out, whole lot of Marines coming out. This is very, very nice play. And the Thor's getting in position to try to one-shot the Mutalisks. Extremely smooth play. Extremely smooth. Now, this is the element that I think most people are going to not notice. They're going to think that it's not something super unbelievably Gosu. That is super unbelievably Gosu, timing-wise. Now, I want you to just pretend for a moment we're playing Protoss versus Zerg, and we're playing on Temple. Dear Protosses, tell me this hasn't happened to you. All of a sudden, when you're moving out to try to kill them, 1,000,000 Mutalisks enter the back of your base, and you just go, I hate Protoss. Zerg are clearly overpowered. I know you've maybe said that at least once. But, so what you kind of naturally tend to do is, as you're moving out, you want to go, oh man, I got to build a whole bunch of defenses at the back of my base, so when I push out the front of my base, he can't do any sort of weird counterattack. That is very, very smart play. That's very, very good. So in this circumstance, it looks like Drewbie's gearing up to move out. He's getting ready to advance. And he's seeing Mutalisks. And notice he's getting the engineering bay right as he's starting to get a little surplus of money. Banshee's gas-heavy unit. As we can see, 150 minerals, 100 gas. 150 minerals, 100 gas. Thor's very gas-heavy. 300 minerals, 200 gas. With that excess buildup, sure, he can end up building a couple of Marines. We see a handful smattered out here. But it starts to build up, and with that excess money, he's going to get the engineering bay, he's going to build those turrets, and right when he moves out to be attacked, right when he moves out to attack, suddenly there is no worry of Mutalisk counterattack. Oh my god. And that's an especially brilliant move, because I'm actually going to rewind this replay a little bit. We're going to back up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go to the start of the game, because this is a little bit of a shorter game. I've been doing some insanely long dailies previously, so I just want to make sure that I do at least one short one from every now and again. So, yes, I just want you to note how low this money is the entire time. And we're going to see the obvious money being low points. Like right now, obviously he's going to make that orbital command. Obviously the factory goes down. Here's some part that's a little bit less obvious. See the money building up? Now it goes back down, and the Hellions, notice they didn't get slowed at all, even though he was keeping his money really low. That is that command center timing I was talking about earlier, the one that QXC is known for popularizing. And there's the starport going down. Now I'm even going to open up the resource menu so we can see Drewbie. He's the blue minerals on the bottom. You can see it at the top left. Look at how low this money is. Look at how low it is. Still really low. He's going to be getting the upgrade soon. Yeah, there it is. Still really low. Factory going down. Still really low. Here's the refineries going down. Still really low. And look at the other factory. He's getting a Viking. God, that money is so close to zero all the time. Now, I want you to just pretend for a moment that this factory wasn't built. This factory is 150 minerals, 100 gas. The starport wasn't built. About the same, right? Actually, I believe it is exactly the same. We can easily go check. No, I can't. My overlay's hiding it. I'm pretty sure it's 150, 100. Something I should know. A little bit red-cheeked at the moment, but you can't tell because my camera has color correction. So going right back to the game. Let's pretend that with all these resources, right, this is about 300 minerals with this half-done tech lab. Let's say Drewbie was worried about Mutalisks, right? Let's say he was a little bit concerned. He could have built an engineering bay. It's 125. He could have built a turret. That's 100. Probably going to want a turret here for our expo. That's another 100. He's going to build a turret here. That's another 100. Uh-oh. These two incredibly important tech structures literally do not get the chance to exist if we build that engineering bay too early. And people tend to treat defenses like they're almost free. You see Protoss is haphazardly building cannons. Like, oh, I felt a little unsafe, so I threw down another cannon. Or, you know, the Terran player is especially guilty of this because turrets are like invincible to Mutalisks. So they go, oh, I'll build a turret here, I'll build a turret there. Oh, I forgot to build the turrets, I don't have to worry about Mutas. Screaming in the higher octaves. And in that circumstance, that's actually a lot of essential money we could have spent on the more useful things, such as this factory and this other starport. And Drewbie's cleverly positioning his Thor and his Marines here so he can maximally defend this region. There's the other Thor moving down. And this is right when these Mutalisks are coming out. Very well timed. Not letting that fear get to him, not thinking, oh man, I really need to make an engineering base so I don't die or something like that. Still notice his money is so friggin' low. It's so low. I mean, his income rate is doing quite well. His money, it's getting a little bit high. Looks like he was a little bit supply blocked. No, he's making Thors. Drops right back down again. Double starport. Money plummeting back down to 0 again. SCVs being made everywhere. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a surplus arise. He's going to be able to build some Banshees here in a moment. Such as right now. Now is that moment. Come on, Drewbie, build those Banshees. I've seen you do it. I know you build the Banshees. Do it, Drewbie. Come on, build some Banshees. Excellent. There are the Banshees going down. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is part 2 of Day 9 Daily number 190. System just locked, and we've been hanging out here on the stream for like 20 minutes. I was sitting here, tapping in my fingers, and then after 20 minutes, finally the connection went through. Pow! Back, ready to finish this very short daily. It doesn't mean that I actually got to finish early. It just means that you archive viewers get to have a nice 30-minute show. But let me tell you something, this live recording, it was rough, man. It went down and I was just like, blah, blah. Made me very unhappy. So we're going to go ahead and go directly back into the game so I can finish this point that has been floating around inside my brain for 20 minutes, finishing it up. So we were talking before the break about how Drewbie is pretty Mutalisk safe due to these Thors, but he needs to put some turrets down here at some point because if he ever wants to leave his base, he will need turrets at the back. I noticed that he's broke on money. I was just begging for Banshees to come out in the previous recording. There's the 2 depots. He starts a Thor, he cancels it. There are the 2 Banshees coming out. And right about now is the first time that Drewbie really starts to get enough cash to do anything other than just constantly produce stuff. Yeah, look, Banshees are making, there's the engineering bay. Finally going down. And that, to me, was the most brilliant final step in this transitioning process. Getting so many Thors, getting some Marines, getting some Banshees out as well. Right as they finish. Yeah, look at this. And look, he makes 2 more Banshees. Notice he has a little bit of extra money floating around. He's been up in the 200 range. A little bit above there, yeah. This is when he can actually start building turrets with that excess funds. Very subtle. A lot of people tend not to consider those defensive structures too much. They just auto-build them. But remember, if we went for this engineering bay and built this turret, actually, I don't know if you can see it. There's a turret being thrown down right there. And if we built this turret, that is $300 total. That meant that this starport and this factory would have never been able to be started early on. And now we have a very nice Marine Thor Banshee army. The Thors are going to pretty much rip through Hydras and Mutalisks, not be terribly good against Zerglings. And really, now we can begin making some Hellions, and we can get that Infernal Pre-Igniter. Look at how nicely this build works out. It's a good 140 food push. He's moving out. It looks very strong. Now, I did not talk too much about whether or not what Drewbie was doing was necessarily good or bad, just that it transitions very cleanly. Notice that there is a huge difference between smooth transitions and solid play versus is this a good strategy? A world of difference. We're seeing it right here. Very cool strategy. A lot of Banshees, a lot of Thors, and some Marines getting thrown in that mix as well. Cool stuff. Hooray. So here comes out. These Hellions are going to try to do some damage. In the meantime, Darkforce has been building up Infestors, Roaches, Zerglings, not many Mutalisks as we see them get shut down. Now, I just want to compare resources right now. We see Drewbie is about 10 food ahead. Now, let's watch this battle in nice normal speed. Nothing too fast. There's the fungal growth. Throwing some Infestors. Oh, infested Terrans. He's killed 1 unit. He might kill 2. There goes down a second one. And the infested Terrans are getting taken out as well. Hydras try to come out into this mix. But Hellions, Thors, and Banshees, as long as they're not taking damage, gonna clean that up. A-okay. Hip hip hooray. I noticed that after that battle, he is way behind by like 30-some food. I mean, this is a very potent force to deal with. And interestingly, that's the end. Now, for the archive viewers, it just looks like it's recorded in 2 segments. For the live viewers, they've been sitting here at 5, at 5, at 5, at 5, at 5, and Ustream servers were just like, blah, blah. Very, very painful to deal with, but we made it through. Sweet. Now, let's talk strategically about what we saw Drewbie just do. Strategically, it looks kind of like there would be issues with Neural Parasite. 4 infestors walk up, Neural Parasite, half that army. The rest of the army can't really get over to the infestors. Maybe the Banshees could snipe the infestors that casted the Neural Parasite, but if there were a lot of Hydralisks there, it would be ripped through right away. So it looks like there are some clear vulnerabilities that would be concerning, at the very least, for the Terran player in that spot. But screw that for the time being. This is such a brilliant example of transitioning from the opening of Double Hellion into that mid-game of Thors, Marines, and Banshees with a little dash of Hellions in there. Very good transitioning. So important to consider. And also that he delayed that engineering bay until the last second, until right when he was moving out. You'll see players do that a lot. Let's say counterattacking is scary. So you want to prepare for that. People will prepare way earlier than they need to. And as a result, maybe they'll build 2 bunkers and a turret instead of building 2 extra barracks. And if they'd gone barracks and then bunkers, they would have ended in the exact same spot, but would have had more stuff. That's why that ordering is so important with the transitioning. So rewatch that daily. I definitely recommend it. We're going to take some questions from the remaining viewers. Thank you very much, loyal viewers. You are very kind. Excellent. Delicious. Delicious. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Mjolnir's Wrath says, Day 9, how do you think Thor Marine Banshee with a splash of Hellions works as a unit composition? Is it a good strategy? Also, how many replays should we send in? Max? I do want to state for the record, the Fun Day Monday for next week is, I want you to play Terran without Marines, Marauders, or tanks. None of those key units. So you can go Hellion, Thor, Banshee, if you please. Send those to Monday at day9.tv. Also for Newbie Tuesday, send me replays of Zerg players who are still struggling to figure out when they want to make drones. I would spend more time talking about that, but it's already way past 8 right now, so I want to make sure I finish this thing up and answer this question. I do think it's a pretty damn good composition. Again, the Neural Parasite does have some vulnerability. The player I saw do that first was LZ Gamer. Just this weird mix of some Hellions, he actually goes Marines and Marauders in that, but then it's like Thor, Marine, Marauder, Hellion, Banshee. It sounds like you're getting everything, and you kind of are, but in a sense, Thors are just a good core unit in an army. Banshees deal a lot of damage, the Marines, Marauders hide behind, and the Hellions are just there because you probably opened that way. So I do think it's quite effective. Try it out. You'll probably be surprised how many one-sided battles you end up in. It's awesome. It is awesome. So Poli-Sci guy says, Day, I find myself hesitant to expand against any aggressive play, or just Zerg. How do I overcome this fear? The best way to overcome fears in general is just to explicitly say when you're going to do things and follow things like a robot. I mean, for instance, sometimes people will get that feeling of, I'm scared to play ladder. Why don't you just tell yourself you're going to play 3 games every day no matter what? It makes the fear go away if you set a regimen. All of a sudden you're not scared to do it, you're just going to do it. So when you have that fear of, oh my god, when should I expand? Watch some of your replays and make an educated guess at when would seem good. Just kind of go, well, I guess at 80 food, I'll expand. 80 food no matter what. I'm planting another command center. And see how that works out. If it feels too early or too late, adjust the number. Don't say, oh, later than 80. Oh, looks like I can get it sooner than 80. Okay, now I'll just play it by ear. Don't play it by ear. Just friggin' make a command center at 90 or 93. Pick numbers for yourself, and it makes it very, very, very good. And also, anytime you're scared, rewatch the replay to see if you are justified in your fear. I was actually playing this epic 3v3 random team game the other day. Yeah. And this player made a huge line of tanks in the middle of a map whose name I'll never remember. And I remember going, oh my god, he's split the map. He and all his allies get their half. And when I rewatched the replays, he had like 8 tanks, and that was it. That was everything he had. And I was like, yeah, why did I misperceive it as being stronger than it was? And now whenever I see that little tank set up on that map, whose name I'll never remember, I just kind of go, oh yeah, cool. We can just sort of swing around, and it'll be ain't no problem. Ain't no problem. Dub Pace says, Day 9, my friend. Oh, we're buddies, as long as we're friends on Facebook. After Drewbie laid out his expo, he transferred a lot of SCVs, leaving the main looking way undersaturated. How do you judge how many workers to pull off the mineral line? A good number is like about half. I mean, about half, perhaps a little less than half at the to the expansion. You do lose a little money while the SCVs are traveling, and that's something to consider, but really you kind of want it to be half and half. Do not fall into that trap of, oh, well, just rally SCVs from both. Your income will actually end up being slowed. So, really probably a little less than half, I'd probably say. You kind of want like 3/5 of your SCVs in your main and 2/5 at the expo. Unless you're planning on gassing really soon. Still, go for like about half. That seems about damn good. So Adder10 says, Day 9 TV. Dear Day 9. Cool, two names in one question. Should I stop making probes if I'm already saturated, or should I expand even if I feel uncomfortable expanding? I want people to get this notion out of their head of saturated versus not saturated. Really, honestly, truly, the more the merrier in terms of workers. If you are a macro-focused player, which means you're going to take a lot of expos. That is the key difference between watching a player like Greetorp or Drewbie. And I'll come back to Greetorp in a second. Watching those players play versus weaker Terran players play. There will be an exchange, and then, Greetorp and Drewbie will take another expand, and it'll be like 4 base versus 4 base. But Greetorp and Drewbie have 4 expos with a lot of SCVs at all of them, and they're mining gas at both, and they're spending all that money. You look at the other player, and he has like 4 bases, and one of them only has 3 guys mining gas and nothing mining minerals, and this other base only has like 10 guys mining minerals and nothing mining gas, and it doesn't end up well in the end. If you are a sort of player who's saying, I'm 2-basing all in, by God, you better know you're 2-basing all in, and then just embrace your 2-basing all in, and just straight up attack without, and hitting a point where you cut those SCVs and probes. It is really hard to be good enough to where you know when you need to cut a probe here and a probe there. Really just try to be making them all the time, all the time, all the time. Sir, we are going to take just one more question. Just one more. Just want to make sure the other record was working. All right, cool. And before we do that question, I wanted to say that next Wednesday, a week from today, Greetorp's going to be coming in as a guest to do a little guest analysis, because I was joking, because I have Fun Day Monday, Newbie Tuesday, and I was like, what am I going to have? No Friends Day Wednesday? And then I realized, I have friends. So I'm going to try to make Wednesday the day where I always have a guest come in, do a little guest commentary about one of his or her own games. But let's be honest, it's going to be one of his own games. So, Greetorp's coming in for Friends Day Wednesday next week, so it's going to be sweet. So I'm excited. It's going to be either a Terran vs. Zerg or Terran vs. Protoss, because I refuse to do one of his Terran vs. Terrans. So, I'm going to look for one last perfect question. One last perfect question. I'm going to take this question from Nick Zerg 1. Day 9, do you find Infestor's Neural Parasite is really worth the price in the mid-game while your gas is better spent on other things? That is a kind of unfairly worded question, I would say. Because, listen to the wording, do you find Infestor's Neural Parasite is really worth it in the mid-game while your gas is better spent on other things? Is it necessarily true that your gas is better spent on other things? Return to the theory of transitions. What does it transition to easier? So, for instance, let's say you're playing like the Little One, and you're going Zergling Infestor very quickly. It's an effective way to deal with early harassment from Hellions, Marines, Reapers. It deals with Banshees quite well. But all of a sudden you see tanks and Thors coming. Well, hell, it's going to be really smart to just get a Neural Parasite, kind of keep doing approximately what you're doing, maybe throw some roaches into the mix or something like that. But then when you see the attack, those 4 infestors that were originally for fungal growths now can be devoted to neural parasites. Nice, it transitioned well. Let's say you opened up Zergling Roach, and then you went for Mutalisks, like a normal friggin' Zerg would. And then you see Thors. It would probably be pretty costly to make an infestation pit, then make the infestors, and then make the neural parasite, because you're just not set up for that. So, I want to get away from the idea of, is the spell worth it, or is the spell not worth it? Pick a build that's great against some things, and then in the spaces where you're feeling weak, that's when you say, well, what does my build afford, or the affordances of it? What does it really transition well into? So again, if you are against someone who is, let's see here. If you are, if you're Drewbie, and you made all these Thors to hold off all these Mutalisks, great. You've held them off. You don't need to say to yourself, are turrets worth it against Mutalisks, or are Thors worth it? You don't need to answer that question because you have a friggin' Thor and it's raping the Mutalisks. Yeah, way to be. Bam. But if you are, say, going Marines and tanks, you might need to say, should I be getting turrets or should I be getting Thors? Probably going to be easier to throw down the turrets, because then you can get the upgrades for your Marines. You can continue making tanks. You don't have to cut the tank production. See how I'm talking more about what you're doing before, plugging into what you're doing next? That's the real key to strategy, is figuring out how to make things work, not just saying blindly, I'm going to do that because that's good, and I'm going to do that because that's good on paper. Yeah. So that ends that daily that was split into 2 parts needlessly. And by needlessly, I mean I'm going to update my graphics card drivers. Yeah! Then I'm going to try to see if I can repair the AVI that was clearly botched from the previous record. So without any further ado, I'm going to say bye-bye to you. And check out Icy Cup Map tomorrow. We're going to be doing a map analysis. I didn't even know you could do that in Starcraft 2. Yes, you can, because Icy Cup has a wonderful array of new custom maps that they're doing their leagues on, such as ITL. Definitely check all those out. Big heart to Icy Cup. You are my home for Brood War. So I am heading out. I'm going to peace. So peace. See you later, alligators. Stopping the recordings now.